Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The NBA GM survey is out. What do the executives think about the Lakers? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, and sometimes on weekends. Very critical to remember that as the season gets closer. It is always free. It is never going to be behind a paywall, and Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 25,000 subscribers to the channel, Andy, all of whom have poured through the results of the annual NBA GM survey, one of the more fun traditions in NBA media, preseason media, I should say, heading into every season. So we are going to unpack that because where the Lakers appear, or maybe we should say where they don't appear, Andy, is kind of interesting. So before we get to that, though, I do want to let everybody know that today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I think, Andy, it's what struck me with this this year's edition of the survey is like the Lakers in some ways might as well be like the Charlotte Hornets for as little attention as they get relative to normal in the GM survey.
Hell, I would just say relative to last season. They're not represented that much at all. You know, LeBron pops up in a few spots, although with less frequency and lower than he normally does. Anthony Davis, a couple spots, but again, lower and with less frequency. The Lakers themselves, though, as a group, you know, there's a little bit of Dalton Knecht mentions, you know, talking about rookies, but they're kind of treated like an afterthought. The GMs around the league were asked to rank the seeds in the teams in the West, how they think they could finish first, second, third, or fourth. And then they ranked the top 8 in terms of overall percentage of votes from there. And it ended up OKC, Minnesota, Denver, Dallas, Phoenix, Memphis, New Orleans, and Golden State. Golden State getting 3% of the 4th place vote. But the Lakers did not manage to get even a 4th place vote from any of these general managers, which in and of itself is not necessarily crazy because, Brian, you and I have both said it could be difficult for the Lakers to end up making one of the top 4 seeds like that. That's not outrageous. But the idea that, say, Golden State would get the, I guess, respect for one place.
One GM somewhere picked them to finish 4th.
Right. And I don't think they're on any steadier ground than the Lakers. Like,
no,
if you ask,
the point of this is, I think, is well, you're getting like it's fairly straightforward. Like that to me, I would have been more surprised to see the Lakers have 2 or 3 GMs who did pick them to finish in the top 4, and the teams that are chosen. I mean, Oklahoma City is the consensus top seed in the West. Minnesota, I think, now that the dust is sort of settling from that trade and people are looking at it and potentially seeing some of the benefits even from how it could work for Minnesota. Denver, Dallas, you know, those are the 2 of the more dominant teams, whether you're talking about last year's success or going back.
And the poll actually might have been conducted before the Minnesota trade happened.
Right. That's a good point. And, you know, you have the Suns, who I think still have that kind of cachet of their top 3, to say the least. And then Memphis. I mean, in terms of teams that are receiving any kind of like statistically meaningful love in a top 4 thing, and Memphis was 2nd in the conference 2 seasons ago. I don't think anybody in their right mind would really be expecting the Lakers to finish in the top 4. And so, I mean, the one thing, and I think this is kind of where you're getting at, like, because nobody picked them in that, you know, even for one random GM, the one place where the Lakers did finish atop a ranking was in the category of most difficult team to predict their outcome. How hard is it to predict their level of success?
Yeah, the Lakers, number one with a bullet, 17% of the GM survey had them. The Rockets and Pelicans tied for second at 13%, Phoenix at 10%, and then the Mavericks and 76ers tied for fifth place. And the Lakers, I think this is actually really accurate, because if you asked me, do I think it is impossible for the Lakers this coming season to finish in the top four? I would say no. I don't think it's probable, but I don't think it's impossible either. If you asked me, do I think they could miss the playoffs altogether? I would say no, that's not impossible. If I had to bet on it, I would bet on them making the playoffs, and I'm pretty confident that they will. But given what a slog it's going to be, seeds like 4 or 5 through 12, and I think it's going to be an absolute bloodbath dogfight, somebody's going to end up getting crunched by the numbers. And it is not impossible to picture the Lakers getting crunched, because the most probable outcome seems to be them in that slog. And if you're in that slog, anything can happen.
Well, I think
their ceiling is potentially high and floor potentially low at the same time.
You can look at it in a couple ways, and we'll keep talking about this after the break. But I mean, the basic premise of this is let's assume for a minute that everyone stays pretty healthy. So you go back and you look at the teams that were picked to finish in the top four. If everybody stays healthy, then I think Oklahoma City and Minnesota and Denver and Dallas are good bets to stay ahead of the Lakers, I think, in the regular season.
I got to see what it looks like with the Timberwolves. And
right.
I actually need to see.
And I want to see what it looks like. I want to see what it looks like with Denver. They've changed, whatever. But I think if I had to put $5 on each of those things today, and I'm not talking 8 games ahead of the Lakers, I just said ahead of the Lakers. And I think that is a reasonable position to take with both of those teams, because the gap between the Lakers and the standings last year, between the Lakers and the T-Wolves, Lakers and Denver, it was pretty big. Lake Dallas, we'll see if their momentum post-trade deadline lasts. Is that something that drives them further to the top of the conference this year? A fully healthy Phoenix team, KD, Booker, Beal, okay, we'll see, better coaching, I guess some people say. At least that's what the GMs think they're going to get, a bigger boost out of Budenholzer than they got out of Vogel. I am surprised.
Ishba considers these things very carefully. He does not react in haste with anything.
And I realize that, Jaren Jackson Jr. already is hurt, but so again, the premise I put out here was if teams are healthy.
A couple other guys.
I am surprised at the lack of attention that the Grizzlies are getting, considering where they finished 2 seasons ago. So the idea that they could be in the top 4 or 3 or 2 is not at all a reach to me. After you start getting, now we're starting to get into Lakers territory here. And, but I understand why somebody might think the Pelicans could jump up. And if Zion, who looks like he's in the best shape of his career, all of a sudden he stays healthy, and, BI, okay, there's something there. It's like you said, it's really crowded. But I think the bigger reason the Lakers are at the top of that list is related to, we'll put the chart back up after the break. Look at the teams on that chart, and it's easy to figure out why they are there. And we'll talk about it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. My daughter is 13. We have bonded a lot over the years through music. She is currently obsessed with Frank Ocean. He has not put out an album in about 8 years, but she hears rumors he's back in the studio, which would mean an album and a tour. And I promised her, if there are Frank Ocean concerts, I'm going to take her to one. Even though I know that would be a difficult ticket to get, I wasn't using Game Time, because they make it easier. You can actually look forward to this experience with new features like Game Time Picks, where it filters out all the confusing, flowery words, and it just shows you incredible deals on great seats, which is all you want. It saves you time. They even offer panoramic seat views before you buy, so you know exactly what the view to the stage and the experience is going to be like. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off.
So, you look at these teams again, Andy, which team's level of success is toughest to predict? Number one, the Lakers. And I guarantee you that, the GMs that didn't vote for the Lakers at number one, probably almost all of them had them at 2 or 3. The Lakers are number one. Injuries, like LeBron and AD going to stay healthy? If they do, they could be pretty good, like they were last year. If they don't, the bottom could drop out, like you said before. Ceiling, reasonably high. Floor, incredibly low. The Rockets, they have both injury issues, and they're hard to predict because, like, what are they? They haven't made a leap or something like that. They've got, they've never really been there before. Lots of talent, never totally put it together. The Pelicans, Zion, BI, injury issues. Phoenix, KD, Beal, Booker, injury issues. Dallas, they're certainly a little top heavy in terms of what people think about with their talent, but obviously Kyrie, for as well as he played last year, has sort of a sketchy injury history himself. Like it's not hard to pick why some of these teams are where they are, because it's very
Sixers
easy.
have tons of injuries.
Sixers have tons of it. So, like, you can look at it, and it's very easy to see the scenarios in which the wheels don't stay on the wagon. I do think,
and that's without, by the way, really quickly taking into account that you have no idea what JJ Redick is as a coach.
100%. I really do think that even in this type of polling, in this type of scenario, LeBron, 40 years old, it's like, maybe is this the year LeBron doesn't perform like LeBron? I mean, I don't know. He was still voted as the second best, tied with like 6 other guys for the second best small forward in the NBA. So it's like people still think he's pretty darn good, but I don't know, what are they going to be? And it's not hard to kind of just ignore them because they didn't get better. They were not part of the conversation in this offseason in any meaningful way. And because of that, I think it's easy to discount the results from last season as worse than they actually were, because they were bounced in the first round, and because they were, quickly out, didn't make a lot of noise, didn't make any. We haven't talked about the Lakers, especially by Lakers standards, much at all. But they won 47 games with, I think, if you went truth serum around the league, one of the worst coached teams in the NBA. And I think at the very least, the people inside that locker room felt like they were a very poorly coached team, whether that's fair to Darvin or not. And they still won 47 games. So I think that weird space that they're in, Indy, that, I know you like to talk about, where they're not bad, but they're not title contenders right now, puts them in a place where people don't even think they're worth ranking in anything.
Again,
like they don't have enough value.
They have a potentially high ceiling. If everybody stayed healthy and coaching really does prove itself to have been something holding back this team last year, then they could be very good. I mean, the look that they had post All-Star break last year with what many people think was bad coaching, they still won at a clip many games above 500, and they ended up in a playoff matchup that just has not been good for them. And who knows, maybe with this new look Denver, it may not be as big of a deal this season. Mm-hmm. But there's been so much focus on LeBron's age this particular offseason, between the Olympic run and showing how great he is in that run, but also at that age, Bronny enters the league, reminding everyone, like, holy crap, LeBron has been in the league a long time. His son is now playing.
He is old enough to play with his son. Exactly.
And by the way, you might have heard he's turning 40 this year. Like, this has been an offseason that really drills into your head. LeBron is both amazing and old as bleep by athlete standards, with billions of miles on the odometer. And that's before you even take into account the way nobody ever believes that Anthony Davis can stay on the court for an entire season. And then, the fact that they are lacking two-way players or enough defensive players, again,
all of it comes down. I think it comes down to their top end, which could make nobody believes that if everything goes well and they sort of get the luck of the draw and they hit their ceiling or something pretty close to it. I think that could put them in the top four. Like in that, we referenced that in the first segment, but I don't think it makes them better than Oklahoma City. And I think that's the thing. It's like, it's this sort of as constructed, whereas Minnesota,
it's funny though.
They went.
It's funny. A lot of this, I think, comes down to how much of a difference does Isaiah Hartenstein make with a presumably still improving Chet Holmgren? Because as great as OKC was last season and as great as you and I both think they're going to be this year, you and I were very much ahead of the curve when it came to hopping on the Thunder bandwagon. The reality is the Lakers matched up extremely well against them last year, which could mean OKC on balance is a better team on a league-wide matchup than the Lakers, but the Lakers might be a good matchup for them.
Right. I think it would have been a better matchup for the Lakers to play Oklahoma City. I don't necessarily buy the idea that that because they beat them in the regular, they would have won that series. But
I'm not saying either, but they
I know
they can beat the Thunder. That's all I mean.
But Oklahoma City also had a Caruso who was voted as the most underrated acquisition of the offseason. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Everything is just as constructed, man. And even the Lakers seem to acknowledge that as constructed, we're probably a little something short, but the hope is, and I'm not going to say the presumption because everybody made that mistake at the last trade deadline, and they're going to made it again over the summer, that like the next move is coming. It's right on the horizon. So until they make some other step, they are unlikely to be better than, whereas Oklahoma City, you can say, we talked about their top end. Minnesota, it's not hard to construct a scenario where things line up the way they hope they do and they turn into an elite team. It's not hard with Denver. Oh, you know what? Player X fills the role of KCP.
Christian Braun.
Christian Braun. Christian Brown plays better. Strother makes a couple strides. Like they've got some young players that they like, and all. Okay, that's a really good team again. And you can do that with Memphis, and you can do that with Dallas because they were in the Western Conference Finals last year with a team after the deadline that was outstanding. It's those teams you can picture scenarios where they get above my pick right now for the consensus top team in the West and the GM's top pick as well. The Lakers just don't have that in the same way. But the assumption, Andy, is that they may not be the same team at the end of the year as they are at the beginning. And so we'll see.
Again, they have simultaneously a potentially high ceiling, a potentially low floor. And I think if things go just reasonably realistic, where, LeBron may miss a handful of games, AD may miss a handful of games, maybe D'Lo or Reeves have something, but guys stay reasonably healthy, I think they will be good. The time that goes missed might prevent them from being great. If too much of it happens, I suppose the bottom could fall out and they could miss the playoffs, but it takes us back full circle. I think they're going to be in the middle of the dogfight, and the dogfight will be very unpredictable.
Right. We haven't talked about it. We didn't even mention teams like Sacramento, or does Houston make a jump? Because they certainly could. They've got the talent there. San Antonio could be a lot better this year than they were. Like, there's a lot going on in the Western Conference. Some other fun little nuggets in here. If you are Anthony Davis, you look at this GM survey, Andy, and you say to yourself, well, this confirms basically everything that I've been saying for the last 2 years, and we'll explain why next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can enjoy this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, let's say you feel 3 steps ahead of everything that is happening. You predict the big touchdown pass, big interception, the sack that's coming. You just got this thing wired. You can confirm your hunches, that feel, with the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you would place your bets. And you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel. And NBA 24-25 season getting closer. Our friends at FanDuel have options for you as of this recording. The Lakers 35-1 to win the championship. Anthony Davis 150-1 for MVP, 25-1 for Defensive Player of the Year. Interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute. And Dalton Knecht 10-1 for Rookie of the Year. That's FanDuel.com.
Before we get to the other bits of voting from this thing, a quick note. So the Lakers play tonight in Milwaukee. It's a strange place to have a preseason game. It's very college football. It's the second half of a agreed upon home and home. Teams handle their own. In the regular season, it's the league that makes the schedule. In preseason, teams make their own. Apparently, the Bucks and Lakers, Andy, entered into an agreement where they would trade home games in the preseason, and it's the Lakers' turn to visit. The Lakers play no games at the Crypt this preseason because with the Clippers moving to their own arena, the arena is being renovated again, and the Lakers are getting an expanded locker room and some other stuff that is not ready yet. Low-key thing about the Lakers that not everybody necessarily knows about, for a jewel of a franchise, they've always had really teeny tiny home locker room. It's like relative, compared to like the Mavericks, which is like 8 billion square feet. The Lakers have something really small because they have to share the space with the Kings and the Clippers. Clippers are now gone. Kings and Lakers are getting bigger home locker rooms. That stuff's not done yet. LeBron tweeted out this afternoon, though, I should say on Wednesday afternoon, can someone please explain to me why we're getting on a plane and heading to Milwaukee for one preseason game? And I get why he's annoyed at having to make this kind of travel in the preseason. But it is worth noting that the Lakers are going to lose because they're never playing in LA. Even just driving to, Acrisure and Palm Springs, all this travel means they are robbed of practice time that they would otherwise get because they have this much travel on their plates. So it is something that impacts them a little bit in terms of their prep.
Well, it's yet another reason why I am happy to see that the practice time they have had, they have treated with a lot of seriousness and purpose. And this is why the attention to detail that we've not just talked about, all the players have talked about, with JJ Redick and his staff implementing what they want to do, that precision matters because they're not getting some of the practice opportunities that they otherwise would have. But, the creature comforts, I think they will enjoy once this stuff is finally finished. I think they just would have preferred it be finished in September as opposed to now.
It's as JJ Redick said, it's not an ideal setup for a preseason, but they'll make it through. And I do think a better facility for yourself at home makes a difference. It'll be worth having. It'll be more comfortable. But it's one of these little things that get in the way of developing for a team that needs to really lean in on its continuity and those kinds of things. Install as much of Redick's system as they can. Losing 2 or 3 or 4 practices over the course of the preseason can make a difference. And so, that's something to think about as the team plays in Milwaukee. Let's get back to AD here. He does, in fairness to the NBA GMs, Anthony Davis does appear in the voting for who is the best defensive player in the league. Got a couple votes for it. Victor Wembanyama kind of ran away with it. It was
40%.
It was Giannis last year at 40%. This year it's Wemby. And then it's sort of a bunch of guys who all basically got the same amount, maybe one more, tied for second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, basically, is Bam, Rudy Gobert, Drew Holiday, Giannis, AD, and Herb Jones. So he's in that group. He's being recognized. Interior defender, he is third behind Wembanyama and Gobert. Most versatile defender in the NBA. Crickets. Doesn't even receive a vote. And before you think, oh, well, they're not focused on the bigs. Well, Wemby got some votes and Bam got some votes. Jonathan Isaac got some votes. No disrespect, but Jonathan Isaac got some
Evan
votes.
Mobley.
Evan Mobley got an also receiving votes.
Aaron Gordon, who's
also
receiving,
also receiving votes. And they somehow, so if you're AD, Andy, this is one of these moments where you look at it and say, all this bleep that I've been saying about how I will never win Defensive Player of the Year because people just don't pay attention to what I do is validated in this kind of polling.
Or they pay attention but don't appreciate it. Like
whatever it is.
I was on Lakers Nation with Trevor Lane, a show that premiered on Wednesday, and you guys can go check it out. It was a really fun conversation between me and Trevor, a friend of the show. He's been on with us a bunch of times. But like I said to him, I feel like I am watching something that apparently the rest of the league is not. When you see Anthony Davis, who I think you can make an argument for most versatile defender in the league, doesn't come up at all. And to be clear, I'm not saying he should have won or demanding he should have won. And the list of guys on here, Giannis, OG Anunoby, Wemby, Bam, Holiday, Isaac, Herb Jones, Jaden McDaniels, Caruso, Gordon, Dort, like these are all really good defensive players. Like there's nobody on there that I'm going like, what the hell? But the idea that Anthony Davis would not get as much mention as Jalen Williams from OKC, or even a guy like Jaden McDaniels, who's very good, but I don't think he's got the same versatility as AD. It makes me wonder, like, do I see just the word versatility different than everybody else? Like, I'm not even so much outraged as I'm just like, what am I seeing that they're not, or vice versa? Like, it's strange.
I don't get it. And there are times when I look at it and be like, well, maybe it's a team thing. It's maybe like, a couple things for Jonathan Isaac. I don't know if it's like people looking at, with Orlando, I think
Orlando's a good defense.
They're very good defense. And I think a lot of people, especially with like the addition of KCP and some more internal growth from Paulo Banchero, and I think they are seen as a sleeper team to do kind of like what Memphis did a couple seasons ago and jump up to, second or third in the conference in ways that people aren't expecting. I don't think anybody expected to finish out of Boston, but could surprise and finish ahead of some other teams that maybe are higher profile. And you look at, OG, playing for the Knicks, obviously a great defensive reputation there, and Bam and Giannis. And I think it's reflective, though, of just the general, I don't want to say ignoring of the Lakers, but it just sort of, so some of these things I think are seen in the context of teams that are going to either be doing something, or teams that you're excited about, or teams that are consequential. And the Lakers, and therefore Anthony Davis, just aren't seen as consequential, which is stupid to me in the sense that the only reason you would ever talk about the Lakers, the only reason they could possibly compete in some of these categories, is because of what LeBron can do, and then what Anthony Davis especially does on both sides of the ball.
I think it's also, I think you are correct that it is a byproduct of, clearly we've seen the execs around the league not expecting a ton from the Lakers. And I think fairly being predicted.
Right. And the Lakers just not being seen as a great defensive team overall.
Right. And they are fairly pegged as a team that is difficult to get a true beat on. But I also think too, and this is something we've talked about a lot, it is likely a byproduct of people always wanting more from Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
And what it
goalposts.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you're getting at. Goalposts.
Yeah. Just even when you acknowledge he's great, and look, for all this talk we're having right now, he made second team all NBA last year, first team all defense. Like, he's not going ignored. Like, the flowers get dropped off at Anthony Davis's doorstep. The guy's doing fine. I'm just saying there is always an element.
The size of the bouquet.
There's always an element of wanting more from Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
And that has existed for a long time and continues to exist. And it's okay to want more from someone if you think there could be more there. but you still should recognize what's there, like what
agree.
actually is happening.
I get why it's frustrating. I hope this all makes him extremely mad. I hope he reads this thing and finds it's deeply resentful and takes it out on the rest of the league. Like every time we talk about this, it's like I want this to be the equivalent of like when Damian Lillard used to not make the Western Conference All-Star team and it would just throttle people for the last 25 games, 30 games of the season. I want that to be Anthony Davis all summer. A few things we didn't get to, something we'll try to get to over the course of the week. Really interesting article from Baxter Holmes on ESPN about Bronny James that brings up a lot of questions about the NBA fans, all kinds of things. It's even more than Bronny and LeBron. So we'll get to that, but obviously we will make sure that you are caught up on everything that happens after tonight's game. Get you ready for what's coming for the rest of the preseason. We'll see everyone tomorrow.